The air was thick with an oppressive silence as Gabriel Lancaster stood at the edge of the grave, the fresh earth piled high and raw. The grey skies above mirrored the weight in his heart, a heavy shroud of grief that seemed to suffocate him. Clara, his beloved wife, lay beneath the soil, leaving behind a void that he feared would never be filled. He could hardly recall the last time he had felt joy. His life had been consumed by the relentless pursuit of success, and now standing here he realized that the cost had been too high. Gabriel. A soft voice pulled him from his spiraling thoughts. It was his assistant Laura gently placing a hand on his arm. "It's time to go." He nodded absently, his gaze locked on the polished headstone that bore Clara's name. It felt surreal, as if he were living someone else's nightmare. They had shared decades of laughter, whispered secrets, and a deep companionship that transcended the ordinary. Yet the one thing they had always yearned for, a family, had eluded them. Their lives had revolved around careers and aspirations, and now, with Clara gone, that opportunity was lost forever. "Gabriel!" Laura's voice broke through his reverie again, more insistent this time. "Right," he murmured, forcing himself to turn away from the grave. As he did, a flicker of movement caught his eye. He squinted into the distance and saw 3 small figures standing slightly apart from the crowd. They were identical girls, each with delicate features and brownish-red hair tied neatly into pigtails. Their simple clothes contrasted sharply with the tailored suits of the attendees, making them seem even more out of place. Unsettled, he took a step closer, his heart racing at the sight of them. There was something achingly familiar about their faces, a resonance that tugged at his memory. He felt a knot tighten in his stomach, a strange sense of recognition that he couldn't quite grasp. "Who are they?" he asked, his voice low, almost to himself. "I don't know, sir," Laura replied, glancing at the girls. "They don't appear to belong to anyone here." Gabriel's pulse quickened as he watched them. The way they stood together, arms linked, their eyes wide and curious, sent a shiver down his spine. He felt an inexplicable pull towards them, a connection he couldn't articulate. Just then, the girls turned their heads, and their gazes locked onto his. It was as if they were peering into his very soul, each one searching for answers he wasn't even sure he had. "Gabriel!" Laura's voice broke through again, but he was already lost in thought. "Find out who they are," he instructed abruptly, his voice steadying as he regained his composure. "I want to know everything." "Of course, sir," she replied, a hint of confusion in her tone, but he didn't notice. His attention remained fixed on the girls as they turned away, whispering amongst themselves. As the funeral finally concluded and the crowd began to disperse, Gabriel felt an urgency swell within him. He couldn't shake the feeling that these girls held a key to something he had long buried within himself. He watched them retreat, their small figures disappearing among the gravestones and the shadows of the trees. Later that day, in the confines of his sprawling office in Manhattan, Gabriel sat behind his polished desk, the city skyline looming outside the window. He glanced at the paperwork scattered before him, but his mind was elsewhere. The image of the 3 girls haunted him, their faces etched into his memory. "Laura," he called, and she appeared promptly, her notepad at the ready. "Did you find out anything about those girls?" She hesitated, glancing down at her notes. "Yes, sir. Their names are Isla Ivy and Iris Morgan. They are the daughters of Rachel Morgan, your former acquaintance." The world around Gabriel seemed to collapse at that moment. Rachel. The name echoed in his mind, a ghost of a past he had tried to forget. He had loved her once, passionately, before ambition had pulled him away to London, before he had buried himself. In the world of finance and corporate strategy. "Rachel is dead," he murmured, the weight of the revelation settling heavily on his chest. "Yes, sir," Laura confirmed, her brow furrowing with concern. She passed away 3 months ago from leukemia. It appears she never informed you about the girls. The news struck him like a physical blow. A mix of guilt and regret flooded through him, and he felt the walls closing in. He had lost Rachel once, and now he was confronted with the reality that he had also lost his chance to know his daughters. "Can you find out where they live?" he asked, his voice firm, despite the turmoil inside him. "I want to meet them." "Of course," Laura replied, her eyes widening at the unexpected request. "But, sir, are you sure this could be complicated?" "Just do it," he said, the edge in his voice leaving no room for argument. As he hung up the phone, he stared out at the city, a labyrinth of glass and steel that felt suddenly alien to him. The thought of the girls, his daughters, sent a shiver of both fear and longing through him. He had spent his life building an empire, yet here he was, faced with a legacy he never knew he had. A week later, he found himself standing outside, a modest brownstone in a quiet neighborhood, the sun casting long shadows as it dipped lower in the sky. The nerves twisted in his stomach as he approached the door, each step feeling heavier than the last. He had rehearsed what he would say, but now that the moment was upon him, the words eluded him. Just as he raised his hand to knock, the door swung open, revealing Elaine, Rachel's sister. Her face was a mixture of surprise and wariness as she took in Gabriel's presence. "Gabriel," she said, her voice soft but guarded. "What are you doing here?" "I need to talk to the girls," he stated, trying to sound more confident than he felt. "I want to know them." Elaine's eyes narrowed slightly, as if weighing his intentions. "They're still processing their mother's death, Gabriel. I'm not sure it's a good time." "I understand that, but they deserve to know the truth," he insisted, his voice cracking slightly. "I can't change what happened, but I can be here for them now." After a moment of tense silence, Elaine stepped aside, allowing him entry. "Fine, but only for a short visit." As he walked into the living room, the familiar scent of coffee mingled with the unmistakable aroma of children's crayons and paper. The room was filled with drawings taped to the walls, colorful, chaotic, and brimming with life. He felt a pang of something he didn't quite understand as he took it all in. Then from the corner of the room, he heard small voices giggling. The girls appeared, peeking out from behind the sofa, their wide eyes betraying both curiosity and caution. "Who's that?" Isla whispered, tugging on Ivy's sleeve. "This is a friend of your mother." Elaine introduced, her tone carefully, measured. Gabriel knelt down, trying to appear less imposing. "Hi there, I'm Gabriel," he said softly, attempting to smile but feeling the weight of uncertainty on his shoulders. "I knew your mom a long time ago." Ivy stepped forward, her bright eyes assessing him with a hint of skepticism. "Did you know her well?" "I did," he replied, his heart racing. "Very well." "Why didn't you come back?" Iris demanded, her young voice surprisingly firm. "You should have known us." Gabriel's throat tightened at her words, and he felt the sting of shame. He started, but the truth hung heavy in the air, a truth he was not yet ready to share. "Let's just take it slow," Elaine suggested, sensing the tension. "Gabriel is here to get to know you." For the next hour, he engaged with the girls, tentatively asking about their lives, their interests. They talked about school, their hobbies, and a particular game they loved to play. Gabriel listened intently, feeling a warmth growing inside him, a flicker of something he thought he had lost. But in the back of his mind, the reality of their situation loomed large. They were unaware of their shared blood, and he was terrified of how they would react when they learned the truth. As the visit came to an end, and Gabriel prepared to leave, he couldn't shake the feeling of longing that had settled deep within him. Each girl had a piece of Rachel within them, a thread that connected him to a past he had tried to forget. He stood at the door, taking one last look at them, their laughter echoing in his ears. "Can we see you again?" Isla asked, her innocent question striking a chord in his heart. "I would like that," he said, his voice thick with emotion. "I would really like that." As he stepped out into the cool evening air, Gabriel felt a sense of purpose igniting within him. He didn't know what the future held, but he was determined to forge a path toward these girls, to understand this new reality. He had lost Clara, but perhaps, just perhaps, he could find something resembling a family once more. As the sun dipped, low in the sky, casting a golden hue over the quiet cemetery of Havenridge, Gabriel Lancaster stood before the gravestone of Rachel Morgan. It was a day heavy with the weight of memories and unspoken words. The gentle rustling of leaves accompanied the solemn silence, but today that silence was punctuated by the soft patter of 3 pairs of small feet behind him. Isla, Ivy, and Iris, the identical triplets who had become the center of his world, stood. A few paces away, their expressions a mix of curiosity and apprehension. "Why did you bring us here?" Isla asked softly, her voice breaking the stillness. She stepped closer to her sisters, her small hand instinctively reaching for Ivy's. Gabriel turned to face them, his heart aching at the sight of their innocent faces, so similar yet so unique in their personalities. "I thought it was important for you to come here today," he replied, his voice low and measured. "This is where your mother rests." The girls exchanged glances, and Ivy, ever the analytical, one furrowed her brow. "But why didn't you visit her before you knew her right? You were friends." There was an edge of suspicion in her tone, a challenge that made Gabriel's chest tighten. He hesitated, searching for the right words. I was caught up in my own life," he admitted, his voice barely above a whisper. "I didn't know how to find her after everything." Iris, standing slightly apart, crossed her arms defiantly. "You should have tried harder," she said, her tone sharper than the others. "You're supposed to be here for us, for her." Gabriel swallowed hard, feeling the weight of their judgment. "I know I have a lot to make up for," he said, lowering his gaze to the ground. "But I'm here now. I want to be here for you all." The triplets remained silent, and the stillness stretched between them like a chasm. Gabriel glanced back at Rachel's gravestone, the name etched in cold stone, a reminder of the life they could have had, of the family that could have been. "Your mother loved you so much," he said, his voice thick with emotion. "She was proud of you. I wish I had known about you sooner." "Did she ever talk about you?" Isla asked, her voice softening as she stepped forward. "Did she miss you?" Gabriel's heart clenched. "Every day, I think," he replied, his eyes glistening with unshed tears. "She never stopped caring, even when we were apart." "Then why didn't she tell you about us?" Ivy pressed, her brow still furrowed in suspicion. "Why keep us a secret?" Gabriel ran a hand through his hair, feeling the weight of their questions. "She wanted to protect you. She loved you too much to complicate your lives with my mistakes," he explained, his voice trembling. "She thought I wouldn't want to be a part of it. Maybe she didn't want you to be," Iris said bluntly, her arms still crossed. "Maybe she thought you'd just leave again." Gabriel's chest tightened at her words, the accusation striking deep. "I wouldn't have left if I had known about you," he said, desperation creeping into his voice. "I would have fought for you, for your family." The triplets exchanged glances again, their expressions a mix of skepticism and uncertainty. "We found some letters," Ivy said suddenly, her voice steady. "Letters from Mom. She wrote them but never sent them." Gabriel's heart raced at the mention of the hidden letters. "What did they say?" he asked, his voice barely above a whisper. "They were about you," Isla replied, her eyes wide with remembrance. "About how she loved you, and why she didn't tell you about us." "Why?" Gabriel asked, his curiosity piqued. "What did she say?" Ivy's gaze hardened, the analytical spark in her eyes returning. She said she didn't want to trap you, that you were too busy with your life to care about us. Gabriel's heart sank as he processed her words. I never wanted to be trapped, he said, his voice cracking, but I wanted to know. I wanted to be there for you all. Then why weren't you? Iris shot back, her tone unforgiving. You had a chance and you just let it go. I know, he replied, his voice heavy with regret, and I'm sorry, but I'm here now. I want to be a part of your lives. I want to make things right. The girls looked at one another, and Gabriel could see the wheels turning in their minds. Ela broke the silence, her voice soft yet firm. Okay, if you want to be here, then you have to prove it. Prove what? Gabriel asked, confusion etched on his face. That you want us, Ivy interjected, her tone resolute. Not just because you feel guilty about Mom, but because you want us to be your family. Iris nodded, her expression softening slightly. We want to know if you're really here for us. You can't just show up and say you care. It has to mean something. Gabriel felt as if the ground beneath him had shifted. What do you want me to do? He asked, his voice steadying with determination. Be with us, Isla said, her eyes earnest. Come to our events. Spend time with us. Show us that you care. Okay, Gabriel replied, his heart swelling with hope. I can do that. I want to do that. And no disappearing, Ivy added, her eyes narrowing. If we ask you to leave, you have to go. No more pretending. Gabriel swallowed hard, meeting their gazes. I promise, he said earnestly, I won't disappear again. The triplets seemed to consider his words, the tension in the air shifting slightly. Let's go back, Iris finally said, her voice softer now. We can talk more later. As they turned to leave, Gabriel felt a glimmer of hope. Perhaps this was the beginning of something new. Perhaps he could find a way to mend the broken pieces of their lives. As they walked away from Rachel's grave, Gabriel felt a sense of purpose settling over him. He had a long way to go, but for the first time, he believed he could forge a new path with these girls. A path filled with love, presence, and the promise of a family he thought he had lost forever. Gabriel stood in the shadow of the old oak tree, the air heavy with the scent of damp earth and wilting flowers. It was the anniversary of Rachel's death, a day that felt like a cruel reminder of the life he had inadvertently abandoned. The girls, Ida, Ivy, and Iris, were with him, their small hands clutching delicate bouquets of daisies and lilacs, the same flowers Rachel used to adore. Each girl wore a look of quiet determination, yet their eyes betrayed a mix of apprehension and hope. As they walked towards the tombstone, the weight of the moment hung between them like a fragile thread. Gabriel's heart raced, he had imagined. This day, countless times since discovering the truth about their lineage. He wanted to tell them everything, to share the unending love he felt for them already, but the words wouldn't come. Instead, he felt like a stranger, a man who had just stepped into a life he never knew existed. Are we ready? Isla's voice broke through his thoughts, soft yet resolute. Her brown hair danced in the gentle breeze, and her wide eyes searched his for reassurance. Gabriel knelt before the grave, his breath hitching in his throat. I think so, he replied, his voice barely above a whisper. The inscription on the stone read, Rachel Morgan, a loving mother and friend. It felt like a stab in the heart. He reached out, brushing his fingers over the cold marble, as if he could somehow connect with Rachel one last time. Ivy stepped forward, her expression serious. We brought flowers. Can we put them here? She looked at him, seeking his approval. Gabriel nodded, his heart swelling with pride at her thoughtfulness. Isla and Iris carefully placed their bouquets at the foot of the grave, and the soft rustle of petals seemed to echo the quiet love Rachel had imparted in their lives. Mom would have loved these, Isla said, her voice thick with emotion. She always said they reminded her of spring. Gabriel swallowed hard, the weight of her words settling heavily. In the air. She loved so many things, he murmured, his mind racing back to the fleeting moments he shared with Rachel. Her laughter, her passion for life, and the way her eyes sparkled when she spoke of her dreams. Did you know her well? Iris, the most straightforward of the trio, asked, her gaze piercing through to the core of his secrets. You don't look like someone who knew her. Gabriel felt the heat rise to his cheeks, the truth of his absence glaringly obvious. I did know her, very well actually, but I was young and foolish, he admitted, his voice trembling. I let ambition blind me to what really mattered. Like us, Ivy interjected, her analytical mind piecing together the fragments of their shared story. You didn't even know we existed, did you? Gabriel turned to face them, his heart aching for their innocence. No, I didn't, but that doesn't change how much I care for you now. I want to be here for you, to be part of your lives. Adela took a step closer, her small hands fidgeting with the hem of her dress. But why didn't you come sooner? We could have known you. We could have had a family. Her voice trembled, and it broke him to see the pain in her eyes. I was afraid. Gabriel confessed, his chest tightening as he spoke. Afraid of facing the past, afraid of what I had lost. I thought it was too late to make things right. Is it? Iris challenged, her protectiveness flaring. She stepped forward, a small warrior in a dress. You can't just show up now and expect us to believe you want to be our dad. What if you decide to leave again? I won't, he vowed, his voice firm yet gentle. I promise you I'm here to stay. I want to learn how to be a father. I want to be the dad you deserve. Silence enveloped them, thick and heavy, as the girls processed his words. They exchanged glances, a silent conversation passing between them, each weighing the gravity of his promises against the backdrop of their mother's absence. Then prove it, Ivy said at last, her gaze unwavering. Show us you're not like him. Who? Gabriel asked, confused. Like the man who didn't care enough to be in our lives. Isla clarified, her voice soft yet resolute. We don't want someone who shows up just for birthdays. We want you to choose us every day. Gabriel felt a lump in his throat, the challenge igniting something deep within him. I will, he whispered, determination flooding his veins. I'll do whatever it takes to win your trust. Good, Iris said, crossing her arms defiantly, because trust is earned, not given, and we need to know you're not just here. Out of guilt. As they stood there, Gabriel felt an overwhelming wave of gratitude. These girls, despite their pain and uncertainty, were willing to give him a chance. He realized then that this was not just about what he wanted, it was about proving to them that he was worthy of their love. Let's make a promise then, he suggested, his voice steady. Let's promise to be honest with each other, no matter how hard it is. The girls looked at one another, and after a moment Isla nodded. Okay, but you have to start. What did Mom write in those letters? Gabriel hesitated, the weight of the unspoken words pressing down on him. I don't know what she wrote, but I know she loved you more than anything. She fought every day to give you the best life she could. Then why didn't you fight for us? Ivy pressed, her voice edged with frustration. Because I was selfish, he admitted, guilt washing over him. I was too focused on my career and what I thought I wanted. I didn't realize the importance of family until it was too late. Isla stepped forward, her eyes glistening with unshed tears. We just want to know that you care, that you want to be with us now. I do, he replied, his heart breaking open. I want to be here for every dance recital, every scraped knee, every moment of laughter and tears. I want to build new memories with you. Okay, Iris said, her expression softening. Then we'll give you a chance, but you have to promise to be there. Not just for the fun stuff, but the hard stuff too. I promise, Gabriel vowed, feeling a surge of emotion. I'll be there for everything. I want to learn how to be the father you deserve. The girls nodded, a sense of understanding settling among them, binding their hearts together in a fragile yet unbreakable way. As they turned back to Rachel's grave, Gabriel felt a sense of warmth envelop him. He was no longer alone in his grief. He had 3 beautiful daughters who needed him, who had already begun to heal the wounds of his past. And in that moment he realized he was ready to embrace the challenge of fatherhood, to honor Rachel's memory by becoming the man he had always hoped to be. Gabriel stood at the edge of the cemetery, the cool autumn breeze rustling the fallen leaves around him. He had returned to this place, to the grave of Rachel Morgan, on the anniversary of her death, but today felt different. Today, he was not alone. Ivy and Iris, his daughters, stood beside him clutching vibrant bouquets of wildflowers, their faces a blend of innocence and knowing. "Are we ready?" Isla asked, her voice soft yet steady. She looked up at Gabriel with those familiar, searching eyes that reminded him so much of Rachel. Gabriel nodded, swallowing the lump in his throat. "Yes, let's go." They walked together, a small procession of 4, the weight of the moment heavy in the air. Gabriel felt the girls' eyes on him, their expressions unreadable, and he couldn't shake off the apprehension swirling in his stomach. He had been dreading this moment, and yet here he was, standing on the precipice of a truth that would change everything. As they reached Rachel's grave, Gabriel felt the chill of the gravestone against his fingertips as he traced the engraved letters of her name. "Rachel Morgan," he whispered, the sound barely escaping his lips. The name felt like a prayer, a plea for forgiveness, for understanding, for the chance to make things right. Isla gently placed her bouquet on the grave, the flowers vibrant against the cold grey stone. "Happy anniversary, Mom," she said softly, her voice breaking slightly. Ivy and Iris followed suit, each laying their flowers with a sense of reverence that struck Gabriel deeply. He watched them, his heart aching with a mixture of love and sorrow. These were the daughters he had never known, the daughters he had lost by his own choices, and now standing here, he felt the weight of regret pressing down on him. "Girls," he began, his voice trembling. Why didn't you come for us?" Ivy interrupted, her tone sharp, her eyes hardening as she crossed, her arms a protective stance that reminded Gabriel of Rachel's fierce spirit. "You were right there in New York. You knew she was sick. Why didn't you try to find us?" Gabriel's breath caught in his throat. The question hung in the air, heavy and accusatory. He turned to face Ivy, his heart racing. "I didn't. No, I didn't know about you. Rachel, she didn't tell me." "Of course she didn't," Ivy snapped, frustration flaring in her voice. "You were too busy being a big-shot businessman." "Enough!" Iris interjected, her voice firm yet calm. She stepped forward, her small frame somehow commanding. "This isn't helping. We're here to remember Mom, not to argue." Gabriel felt a swell of admiration for Iris. There was a strength in her that he recognized, a quality that had surely come from Rachel. "Iris is right," he said, choosing his words carefully. "I came here today not to defend myself, but to honor your mother and to try to make sense of everything that's happened." The girls fell silent, their emotions shifting like leaves in the wind. Ursula stepped closer to Gabriel, her eyes wide and hopeful. "Do you really want to be here with us, or is this just guilt?" Gabriel's heart ached at her earnestness. He knelt down, meeting her gaze directly. "Isla, I'm here because I want to be. I want to know you, to be a part of your lives. I want to be the father I should have been all along." Ivy scoffed, crossing her arms tighter. "But what does that even mean? You can't just decide to be a dad now because you feel bad." "I know that," Gabriel replied, his voice steady, yet vulnerable. "But I promise you I want to try. I want to earn your trust." Iris looked between her sisters, her protective instinct warring with the hope flickering in her heart. "How can we trust you? You've been gone our whole lives. You never even knew we existed until Mom was gone." Gabriel felt the sting of her words, each one a reminder of his failures. "I can't change the past," he said, his voice breaking slightly. "But I can change the future. If you let me, I want to be here for you. I want to show you that I can be a good father." "Words are easy," Ivy said, her skepticism palpable. "What if you just leave again?" "I won't," Gabriel promised. "I swear, I'm here to stay." The silence that followed felt thick, almost suffocating. Gabriel could see Isla's brow furrow in thought as she processed his words, while Ivy's expression remained guarded. Iris, however, was watching him closely, her gaze unwavering. "Okay," Isla said finally, her voice small but resolute. "But you have to prove it." Gabriel nodded, feeling a mixture of relief and anxiety. "I will. I'll do whatever it takes." Ivy rolled her eyes but didn't argue. "You'll have to be ready for us to test you. We're not going to make this easy." "Good," Gabriel said with a slight smile. "I wouldn't want it any other way." As they stood together in silence, Gabriel felt a warmth begin to spread in his chest, a flicker of hope igniting within him. Perhaps this was the beginning of something new, something worth fighting for. He glanced at the flowers on Rachel's grave, the vibrant colors, a stark contrast to the grayness surrounding them. "Rachel loved you all so much," he said softly, his voice filled with emotion. "She spoke about you all the time. I wish I could have been there for you." Isla placed a hand on his shoulder, her touch gentle yet firm. "We can't change what happened, but we can change what happens next. If you really want to be our dad, you have to show us." "I promise," he said, his voice steady. "I'll show you." As they began to walk away from the grave, Gabriel felt a sense of determination wash over him. He was ready to face the challenges ahead, ready to embrace the role he had long denied himself. He could feel the weight of Rachel's absence like a shadow, but it was now joined by the light of possibility, the chance to build something new, to create a family where there had once been only loss. The road ahead would be difficult, filled with uncertainties and tests of faith, but for the first time in a long while, Gabriel felt a sense of purpose. He was no longer just a man haunted by his past. He was a father ready to take the first step into a future that held the promise of love, healing, and redemption. As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting a golden glow over the small cemetery, Gabriel Lancaster stood before the grave of Rachel Morgan, the woman who had once held his heart. The air was thick with the scent of fresh flowers, and the quiet hum of nature seemed to hush around him, creating an almost sacred atmosphere. He had not wanted to come here. The memories were painful, the weight of regret suffocating. But today he had no choice. Today was a reckoning. Isla, Ivy, and Iris stood a few paces behind him, their small forms silhouetted against the fading light. He could feel their eyes on him, scrutinizing, waiting for something. Answers, perhaps. They had been unusually quiet since they arrived, each lost in her own thoughts. Gabriel took a deep breath, the cool air filling his lungs, and turned to face them. "Are you ready?" he asked, his voice soft but steady. Iris, the boldest of the three, stepped forward, her dark hair catching the last rays of sunlight. "We're not here to say goodbye, are we?" she challenged, her eyes narrowed with determination. "We want to know why you never came for us, Gabriel. Why didn't you ever try to find us?" Ivy echoed her tone, more analytical, dissecting the situation like a puzzle waiting to be solved. "Or even reach out to Mom. What kind of person does that?" Gabriel felt the heat of their accusations wash over him, and guilt clawed at his insides. "I didn't know. I had no idea you existed until—" He trailed off, glancing back at Rachel's headstone, the engraved letters stark against the darkening sky. Until it was too late. "Too late," Isla whispered, her voice trembling. Slightly, the vulnerability in her tone pierced through his defenses. "But you're here now. You can still choose." He turned back to them, his heart racing. "I want to choose. I want to be part of your lives. But I need you to understand." "Understand what?" Ivy interjected, her voice rising. That you're guilty, that you feel sorry for us, because that doesn't mean you'll be a good father. Gabriel closed his eyes for a moment, willing himself to find the right words. I'm not here out of guilt. I'm here because I want to be a father. I want to be here for you all. I never intended to abandon you or Rachel. I was young, foolish, and driven by ambition. He paused, searching their faces for some sign of understanding, but I realize now that ambition cost me everything. The girls exchanged glances, each processing his confession in her own way. Gabriel could see Isla's expression soften just a fraction, while Ivy remained skeptical, her arms crossed defiantly over her chest. Iris, however, was watching him intently, her fierce gaze unyielding. "Why should we believe you?" Iris asked, her voice steady, despite the tremor of doubt that hung in the air. "You could just be saying what we want to hear." "Because I'm standing here," he said, desperation creeping into his voice. "Because I'm willing to fight for you. I want to start over, to learn how to be a father, not just on paper, but in reality. I want to be present." Ivy scoffed, shaking her head. "You can't just say that and expect us to trust you. You don't know what it's like for us. You don't know how it felt to grow up without knowing you." Gabriel's heart sank further. He had never fully grasped the depth of their pain until this moment. "I know I can't erase the past," he admitted, his voice breaking slightly. "But I want to be part of your future. I want to learn who you are. I want to be there for the dances, the school projects, the moments that matter." The air shifted, charged with the weight of his sincerity. For a moment, silence enveloped them, broken only by the distant rustle of leaves. Then Isla took a tentative step forward, her small hand reaching out toward Gabriel. "What if we let you? What if we gave you a chance?" Gabriel felt a flicker of hope ignite within him. "I'd do everything I can to prove to you that I'm worthy of that chance. But you have to promise us something," Ivy said, her tone shifting as she softened a bit. "No more secrets, no more lies. If you really want to be our dad, you have to be honest with us, no matter how hard it is." He nodded fervently, the gravity of her words sinking in. "I promise, I'll be honest. I'll tell you everything, and I won't hide from my past or my mistakes." Iris stepped closer, her eyes searching his face. "And if we want you to leave, if we decide you're not fit to be our dad?" Gabriel swallowed hard, the reality of her question hitting him like a blow. "I'll respect that. If you ever feel like I'm not the person you want in your life, I won't force myself upon you. I want you to feel safe and loved above all else." The sincerity in his voice seemed to resonate with them. Isla, still hesitant, finally took a deep breath and said, "Okay, we'll give you a chance, but you have to meet us halfway. We're not going to make it easy." "I wouldn't want you to," he said, his heart swelling with gratitude. "I expect nothing less than to earn your trust. I'm ready to work for it." The moment hung between them, a fragile yet profound connection forming in the air. Just then Isla knelt beside Rachel's grave, her fingers brushing over the cool stone. "Mom always said that family is everything. She'd want us to give you a chance," she murmured, her voice barely a whisper. Gabriel felt a rush of emotion at her words. "Your mother loved you more than anything," he said, kneeling beside her. "I may have lost her, but I won't lose you. You are my family now, and I want to be there for you." The girls exchanged glances, and in that moment, Gabriel knew they were beginning to accept him, even if just a little. It was a fragile beginning, but it was a beginning nonetheless. "Let's make a promise," Iris proposed, her demeanor softening as she shifted closer to her sisters. "Let's promise to take this one day at a time." "One day at a time," they echoed together, a chorus of tentative hope. As the last rays of sunlight slipped below the horizon, Gabriel felt a sense of peace wash over him. They were still at the beginning of a long journey, but for the first time in years, he felt as if he had a chance to reclaim not just his past, but his future. A future filled with the laughter and joy of three little girls who had already begun to mend the pieces of his broken heart. Gabriel stood at the edge of the cemetery, the chill of the early autumn air biting at his skin. The sun was setting, casting a golden hue over the rows of headstones, and the leaves crunched underfoot as he followed Isla, Ivy, and Iris. Each step felt heavier, the weight of the moment pressing down on him as they made their way to Rachel's grave. The girls were quiet, their small hands holding tightly onto the flowers they'd picked earlier that day, simple wildflowers that grew near their home. As they reached the grave, Gabriel felt his heart race. He had spent the last few months trying to build a bond with these girls, trying to be the father they needed, and now the reality of what he had lost, not just Rachel, but the life he could have had with his daughters, felt nearly unbearable. He knelt down beside the grave, the inscription on the stone reading, "Rachel Morgan, beloved mother, teacher, and friend." His fingers traced the letters, feeling the cold stone beneath his touch. "Mom would have loved these," Isla said softly, kneeling beside him. She placed the flowers gently at the base of the headstone, her dark brown eyes shimmering with unshed tears. It reminded Gabriel of Rachel, the way she had always found beauty in the simplest of things. "She always loved flowers," Gabriel replied, his voice thick, "especially wildflowers. They remind me of her spirit, free and full of life." He looked at Isla, who nodded, her expression a mix of sadness and understanding. "Do you miss her?" Ivy asked, her tone direct and unyielding, as if she were interrogating him. The analytical girl had always been the most perceptive, and Gabriel knew this moment would come. "I do," he admitted, turning to face her. "Every day. But I also miss the chance I had to be in your lives, to be a part of your family." He swallowed hard, his throat tightening with emotion. "I never knew about you three. I didn't know Rachel was raising you alone. Why didn't you come back for her?" Iris blurted out, her voice sharp, but laced with vulnerability. The protector of the trio, she crossed her arms, her small frame tense. "You left her without a word. You didn't even know she was sick." Gabriel's heart sank. "I was young and foolish. I thought I had to build a life for myself first. I thought I could come back later, but by then—" He paused, his voice trailing off. "I was too late." The girls exchanged glances, their expressions a blend of skepticism and curiosity. They were testing him just as they had been since the beginning of their relationship. They wanted to know if he was really here to stay, or if he would vanish like their mother had. "Do you really want to know us?" Ivy asked, her eyes narrowing. "Or are you just here because you feel guilty?" "I'm here because I love you," Gabriel said, the words spilling out before he could stop himself. "I love you all. I've watched you grow, and I want to be part of your lives if you'll let me." "Love isn't just a word," Isla said softly, her gaze steady on him. "You have to show it. You have to prove it." "I know," Gabriel said, his heart aching at her innocence, "and I'm willing to do whatever it takes. I want to be here for you to be the father you deserve. I will fight for that. I will fight for you." In that moment, the sun dipped lower, and the shadows grew longer around them. The air was thick with unspoken feelings, and Gabriel felt the weight of Rachel's absence pressing down on them all. "We found something," Ivy declared suddenly, her voice cutting through the quiet. "In Mom's things. Letters." "Letters," Gabriel echoed, his heart racing. "What letters?" Rachel had been a writer, always scribbling her thoughts down on paper. He had loved that about her, how she could capture moments and feelings in a way that felt tangible. But he had never imagined she would leave behind something meant for him. "Letters she never sent," Isla explained, her voice trembling slightly. "She wrote to you, Dad. She wanted you to know about us, about her, but she never had the chance." Gabriel's breath caught in his throat. What did she say? We don't know yet, Iris replied, her brow furrowing. We didn't read them. Mum said they were private and we wanted to respect that. But we still want to know if you're here for us. Ivy said, her expression serious. If you're really here, then we'll give you the letters. But if you're not, if you don't really want to be our dad, we don't want to share them. Gabriel felt a lump forming in his throat. The stakes were high, and he understood their need for protection. They had lost their mother, and now they were faced with the possibility of losing another parent, or gaining one who might not truly care. I promise you I'm here to stay, he said, his voice steady, and I'll prove it to you whatever it takes. I want to read those letters with you if you'll let me. As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting a warm glow over the cemetery, a sense of hope began to blossom in Gabriel's heart. The girls were wary, but he could sense a flicker of trust forming in their eyes. They were willing to give him a chance, and he was determined not to let them down. Iris took a deep breath, and for a moment Gabriel thought she might smile. Okay, let's go home, but you better be ready to answer our questions. Gabriel nodded, a small grin breaking through his somber expression. I'm ready for anything. As they turned to leave, the weight of Rachel's memory lingered in the air, but for the first time, Gabriel felt a glimmer of hope. They were walking away together, not as strangers, but as a family, on the brink of something new. And as they left the cemetery behind, he made a silent promise to Rachel, and to the three girls who were now his daughters, that he would do everything in his power to make up for lost time. Each step felt lighter, as if the burden of the past was slowly lifting. Gabriel looked at the girls, their faces illuminated by the fading light, and he knew that they were ready to take the next step together. They had a long way to go, but for the first time he felt like they might just be able to make it. The soft rustle of leaves danced in the cool autumn air as Gabriel stood at the edge of the cemetery, his heart heavy with a mixture of dread and anticipation. The day marked a year since Rachel's passing, the woman he had loved and lost, and now standing before her grave, he felt the weight of unresolved emotions pressing down on him. The girls had insisted on coming, and as they approached him, he could see Isla carrying a bouquet of daisies, Ivy clutching a small notebook, and Iris with her fierce gaze leading the way. Are you ready? Iris asked, her tone both protective and inquisitive. Gabriel nodded, though a lump formed in his throat. As ready as I'll ever be. The trio of girls moved closer, their expressions a mix of youthful determination and understanding that belied their ages. They paused before their mother's grave, the headstone bearing Rachel's name etched in polished stone, a stark reminder of the life and love that once flourished. Isla knelt first, placing her daisies gently. At the base of the stone, her small fingers trembling slightly as she whispered something too soft for Gabriel to hear. Can we say something? Ivy asked, her eyes darting between Gabriel and the grave. I think it's important. Of course, he replied, his voice barely above a whisper, as he stepped back to give them space. He watched, heart swelling, with both pride and sadness, as Isla and Ivy exchanged glances, a silent communication passing between them before they turned their attention back to the grave. I miss you, Mom, Isla said, her voice steady, despite the tears pooling in her eyes. I wish you were here to see us dance. We're getting really good, I promise. Gabriel even came to our last recital. Gabriel's heart ached at the mention of his presence at their dance recital. He could still remember vividly the way Isla had beamed with joy when he had cheered the loudest, her little face lighting up like the sun. I wish you could tell me what to do, Ivy added, her analytical nature surfacing. I have so many questions. Why didn't you tell us about Gabriel? Did you think we wouldn't want to know him? The silence that followed felt heavy, wrapped in the weight of their unspoken truths. Gabriel felt the urge to step forward to defend Rachel, but he held back, letting the girls express their feelings. What if we don't want him here? Iris interjected, her protective instincts flaring. What if he's just here out of guilt? What if he doesn't care about us at all? Gabriel's heart sank at her words, the sting of accusation piercing deeper than he anticipated. "Iris, that's not true," he finally said, stepping closer. His voice steady but soft. "I'm here because I care. I'm here because I want to know you to be your father. I never got the chance to be there for your mother, but I want to be here for you now. Then why didn't you look for us?" Ivy pressed her brow, furrowed in confusion and hurt. "You knew about us, didn't you? Why wait until now?" Gabriel swallowed hard, the memories of his past choices flooding back. "I didn't know how to find you. I thought I was too late. I thought Rachel wanted to keep you away from me. I was wrong, and I regret that deeply." "What do you regret more?" Isla asked quietly, the innocence in her voice contrasting sharply with the weight of her question. "Us or Mom?" The question hung in the air like a fragile thread, and Gabriel struggled to find the right words. "I regret not being there for your mother when she needed me," he admitted, his voice thick with emotion. "I regret not knowing you sooner, but I'm here now, and I want to make it right." The girls exchanged glances, their expressions shifting from skepticism to contemplation. Isla, who had been kneeling beside the grave, looked up at Gabriel. "Then show us you care." "How?" Gabriel asked, feeling a mix of desperation and hope. "Be here," Ivy said simply. "Not just today, all the time. Don't be like the men in movies who disappear. Be real." Gabriel nodded, his heart pounding. "I'll do my best. I promise." "Promises can be broken," Iris said, crossing her arms defiantly. "We need to know you mean it. You have to prove you're different." "Then let me prove it," he replied, sincerity pouring from him. "I want to be part of your lives. I want to learn who you are. I want to be there for your recitals, your birthdays, and everything in between." "Okay," Isla said softly, her demeanor softening. "But we need time. We need to know you're not just saying what we want to hear." "I understand," Gabriel said, his voice steady. "I'll give you all the time you need. Just let me in." After a moment of silence, Ivy took a step closer to the grave, her expression contemplative. "What would Mom want us to do?" "She'd want us to be happy," Isla replied, wiping her tears. "And she'd want us to have a family, even if it's different from what we thought." "Then let's try," Iris finally said, her voice steady, though the uncertainty in her eyes lingered. "Let's see if you can handle it." Gabriel felt a rush of relief wash over him. "I promise to make this work. I want to be the father you deserve." The girls gathered around him, forming a small circle, their faces a mix of hope and caution. Gabriel felt a warmth in his chest, a flicker of light in the darkness that had consumed him since Clara's death. "Let's go get hot chocolate," he suggested, trying to lighten the heavy atmosphere. "We can talk more there." "Okay," Idla agreed, her smile returning. "But only if you promise to tell us stories about Mom." "I can do that," Gabriel said, his heart swelling with affection for the three young girls who were slowly becoming the family he never knew he needed. As they walked away from the grave, Gabriel glanced back at Rachel's headstone, a sense of peace washing over him. The path ahead would be filled with challenges and uncertainties, but for the first time in a long time, he felt a glimmer of hope. He was ready to embrace the promise he never made, and to learn what it truly meant to be a father. As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting long shadows across Haven Ridge Cemetery, Gabriel stood before Rachel's grave, his heart heavy. The cool autumn breeze rustled the leaves, creating a soft whisper that felt eerily like the echoes of unspoken words. He could see the three girls standing a few paces behind him, their small figures framed by the fading light, clutching bouquets of wildflowers they had picked from the nearby field. "Why did you never come looking for us, Gabriel?" Isla's voice broke the silence, fragile yet piercing, as she stepped forward, her brown hair catching the last rays of the sun. Her large, expressive eyes searched his face for answers, and Gabriel felt the weight of her gaze settle on his soul. "I didn't know," he replied quietly, his voice barely above a whisper. "I had no idea you existed until today." The truth hung in the air, painful and raw. He had spent years building walls around his heart, and now they were crumbling, giving way to the reality of his past mistakes. "Then why are you here now?" Ivy asked, her tone sharper, more analytical. She crossed, her arms, her brow furrowing as she studied him intently. "Is it because of Mom, or because you feel guilty about not being a part of our lives?" Gabriel took a deep breath, looking down at the bouquet in his hands, a mix of daisies and bluebells which the girls had lovingly chosen. "I'm here because I want to be," he said, meeting Ivy's probing gaze. "I want to know you. I want to be part of your lives, not just because of your mother, but because of who you are." Eris, the most protective of the trio, stepped forward, her expression resolute. "You can't just show up and expect us to accept you. You've missed so much. We don't want a father who only shows up on birthdays and holidays. We want someone who will be there every day." Gabriel felt the sting of her words, each one a reminder of the family he had never known he had. "I understand," he replied, his voice thick with emotion. "I'm not asking for your forgiveness or your acceptance right away. I just want a chance to start over with all of you." Isla, ever the gentle soul, took a step closer to him. "We want to know you too, but it's hard to trust someone we don't know. You have to show us you care." Her voice trembled slightly, and Gabriel could see the vulnerability beneath her brave exterior. "I promise I'll do everything I can to earn your trust," he said, feeling a surge of determination. "I'll be here at every recital, every school project. I'll learn who you are and be the father you deserve." The girls exchanged glances, a silent conversation passing between them before Ivy spoke again. "You say you want to be a father, but do you even know what that means? It's not just about being there, it's about being present emotionally. You have to open up to us too." Gabriel nodded slowly, the weight of their expectations settling heavily on his shoulders. "I know it's not easy. I haven't been the best person and I've made terrible mistakes. But I want to change that, for you." A silence fell over them, the weight of Gabriel's words hanging heavy in the air. The distant sound of rustling leaves and the soft chirp of crickets filled the void as he looked down at Rachel's grave, feeling her absence like a wound that would never fully heal. "Mum used to write letters to you," Isla said suddenly, her voice breaking the silence once more. "She never sent them, but she kept them hidden in a box. We found them a few days ago." Gabriel's heart raced at the revelation. Letters. What did she say? Isla glanced at her sisters, then back at him. "They were about us, about you. She loved you, Gabriel. She wanted you to be a part of our lives, but she also wanted to protect us. She didn't want to force you into something you weren't ready for." "Rachel," Gabriel whispered, feeling the weight of her unfulfilled love and the life they could have had. "I wish I could have been there for her, for you three. She never stopped loving you." Ivy continued, her voice softening. "But she also taught us to be strong and independent. She wanted us to know that we could stand on our own no matter what." Gabriel swallowed hard, his throat tight with emotion. "I understand. I don't want to come between what you had. With her, I want to honor her memory and be someone you can rely on." Iris stepped forward, her eyes fierce with determination. "Then prove it. Show us that you're not just here out of guilt, but because you want to be a family. You have to understand that you can't just walk in and expect us to trust you blindly." "I get it," Gabriel replied, his heart pounding in his chest. "I can't expect anything from you without earning it first. I'm willing to start from scratch." Isla reached out her small hand, brushing against his arm, a gesture of tentative acceptance. We'll see, I guess, but it's going to take time. Gabriel nodded, a mix of relief and anxiety flooding through him. I'm ready for that. I'll be here every step of the way. Just give me a chance. As they stood together in the fading light, the weight of the past hung between them, but so did a glimmer of hope for the future. For the first time in a long while, Gabriel felt a sense of purpose rekindle within him. He wasn't just a man mourning his wife anymore. He was a father, whether they were ready to accept him or not. Let's go home, Iris said, breaking the heavy silence. We can talk more about this later. As they turned to leave, Gabriel cast one last glance at Rachel's grave, a silent promise forming in his heart. He would do everything in his power to honor her memory and the daughters he had only just begun to know. The journey would be fraught with challenges, but he was determined to embrace this new chapter filled with love, redemption, and the promise of a family he never thought he would have. Gabriel stood at the edge of the cemetery, his heart heavy with the weight of unspoken words and unresolved emotions. The air was crisp, a stark contrast to the warmth that had enveloped him just moments before, surrounded by the laughter and chatter of the girls. They had spent the morning in the park, their giggles echoing through the trees as they played tag, an innocent joy that felt foreign yet exhilarating to him. Now, as he gazed at the grave of Rachel Morgan, a profound silence enveloped him, broken only by the soft rustle of leaves in the wind. Idla, the most perceptive of the trio, stepped forward, her small hand clutching a bouquet of wildflowers she had picked. "Gabriel," she said softly, her voice trembling with the weight of the moment. "Why did you never come for us?" Her words hung in the air, a haunting echo of the questions that had lingered in their hearts since the day they learned the truth. Gabriel turned to face her, the sunlight casting a golden halo around her tousled hair. I didn't know about you. I didn't know Rachel was gone." His voice faltered, emotions bubbling just beneath the surface. "I wanted to be there. I wanted to know you." "But why didn't you try?" Ivy chimed in, her tone sharp, with a blend of skepticism and curiosity. "You could have found us. You're a billionaire. You could have hired someone to look for us." Her analytical mind was already dissecting the situation, looking for answers that would make sense of the chaos. "I was lost in my own world," he admitted, the weight of regret pressing down on him. "I thought I was doing what was best by focusing on my career, my life. I thought I was building a future, but I never considered that I was leaving behind something far more important." Iris' arms crossed defiantly, stepped closer, her eyes narrowing as she assessed him. "You can't just show up now and expect us to believe you care. We didn't ask for this. We didn't ask for you." Her fierce protectiveness over her sisters was palpable, a barrier she had built around them since Rachel's passing. Gabriel swallowed hard, the lump in his throat constricting his words. "I'm not asking for your forgiveness or your trust, but I want to try. I want to be part of your lives, not just as a figure from the past, but as someone who can be here for you now." Isla, her expression softening, knelt by the grave, placing the bouquet gently on the headstone. "Mom loved you," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "She wrote letters to you. She kept everything about you safe." She looked up at him, her eyes glistening with unshed tears. "Why didn't you ever write back?" "I didn't." "Oh, no," he replied hoarsely, his heart breaking at the thought of Rachel's unfulfilled hopes and dreams. If I had known how much she needed me, I would have done everything differently." Ivy, still skeptical, crossed her arms tighter, but there was a flicker of curiosity in her gaze. "What did she say in those letters?" Gabriel looked at the grave, imagining Rachel's words filled with longing and love. "She wrote about you, about how proud she was of you three. She wanted to give you a life filled with love, even if it meant doing it alone. She never wanted to burden me with the responsibility. She thought it would be easier this way. Easier for whom? Iris shot back, her voice rising. It wasn't easier for us. We grew up without a father. We had to figure everything out on our own. Her fierce demeanor was a reflection of the struggles they had faced without Rachel's support, the nights spent comforting one another, the silent tears shed in the dark. "I can't change the past," Gabriel said, his voice pleading, "but I can change the future. I want to know you, to be there for you. If you give me a chance, I promise I won't let you down again." Silence enveloped them as the gravity of his words sank in. The girls exchanged glances, their expressions a mixture of skepticism and hope. "What if you leave again?" Ivy asked, her voice steadier now, but the uncertainty was still there. "What if you just go back to your life and forget about us?" "I won't," Gabriel replied firmly. "I'll prove it to you. I want to be there for all the little moments, the big moments, everything. I want to be a part of your lives, to learn how to be a father. I know I have a lot to make up for, but I'm willing to try if you are." Isla's eyes sparkled with a hint of hope, while Iris remained guarded, her arms still crossed. Ivy's analytical gaze softened, and in that moment Gabriel could see the cracks forming in their defenses. "Okay," Isla said, finally breaking the silence, "but you need to understand something. We're not going to make it easy for you. You have to earn our trust." "I understand," Gabriel replied, relief washing over him. "I'm ready for that." Iris uncrossed her arms, looking at her sisters with a mix of determination and uncertainty. "And if we decide we don't want you in our lives?" Gabriel took a deep breath, the weight of her words pressing down on him. "Then I'll respect your decision. But I hope it won't come to that. I want you to be happy. I want to be part of that happiness." As they stood in the shadow of Rachel's grave, the air around them shifted, a fragile thread of connection, forming amidst the pain and uncertainty. The truth of their situation was undeniable, but so was the flicker of hope that lingered in the air. "Let's start over," Isla suggested, her voice a gentle prompt. "You can come to our ballet recitals and we can play games. Just be there." "I'd like that," Gabriel replied, a smile breaking through the clouds of despair that had settled over him. "I will be there." And as they stood together in the cemetery, a new chapter began to unfold, one filled with fragility, uncertainty, and the promise of love that had been long overdue. Gabriel felt the warmth of their tentative acceptance, a flicker of light in the darkness that had consumed him for so long. "Let's go home," Iris said, her voice steadying the protective walls around her heart slowly beginning to crumble. "Yeah," Ivy agreed, a hint of a smile tugging at her lips. "But no more secrets." Gabriel nodded, his heart swelling with determination. "No more secrets." And together they turned away from the grave, stepping into the future, uncertain but hopeful, ready to navigate the complexities of a new family, forged from love loss and the promise of redemption. Gabriel stood at the edge of the cemetery, the winter air biting at his skin, but it was nothing compared to the chill that gripped his heart. The weight of the moment pressed down on him as he glanced at the three small figures standing beside him, their heads bowed, a bouquet of wildflowers clutched in each of their hands. Isla, Ivy, and Iris, his daughters, though he had never been there to witness their first steps, their laughter, or their tears. The realization felt like a punch to the gut, a mix of joy and sorrow that twisted inside him. "Do you think she can see us?" Isla whispered, her voice barely above a murmur, her delicate features framed by the strands of her brownish-red hair that danced in the cold wind. She looked up at Gabriel with wide, hopeful eyes, seeking reassurance. "I hope so," Gabriel replied, his voice thick with emotion. I think she knows how much we love her." He knelt down beside them, placing his hand on Isla's shoulder, feeling the warmth of her small body against the frigid air. Ivy stood to his left, her brows furrowed in contemplation, while Iris remained protectively at the back, her gaze darting between Gabriel and the grave. "She should have told you about us," Ivy said, her tone sharp, a contrast to her sister's softness. "It's not fair that we had to find out like this." "I know," Gabriel responded, his heart aching at the pain etched on her face. "It wasn't right for her to keep that from you, but I promise I'm here now and I want to be part of your lives. I want to make this right." Iris stepped forward, her expression fierce. "You say that, but how do we know you won't just leave again? Mom was always worried you'd forget about us." "Iris," Isla interjected gently, "let him speak." Gabriel took a deep breath, steadying himself against the weight of their scrutiny. "I can't change the past, but I can promise you that I'm not going anywhere. I'm here because I want to be your father. I want to learn how to be there for you, even if it's scary." "Scary," Ivy echoed, crossing her arms defiantly. "You think we're scared? We're the ones who had to grow up without a dad. How do we know you won't just disappear when things get hard?" "There's no easy answer," Gabriel admitted, his gaze dropping to the grave of Rachel, the woman he had loved and lost in more ways than one. "But I'm willing to fight for you. I'm willing to learn to make mistakes and to grow with you. I've spent too long hiding from my feelings and from the truth about your mother. I want to honor her memory by being the father you deserve." "Honor her memory?" Iris scoffed, her hands on her hips. "You mean by pretending to be some kind of hero now that she's gone?" "Not pretending," Gabriel replied, his voice steady, though the hurt of her words pierced him. "I'm not asking for your forgiveness. I'm just asking for a chance to show you that I can be here for you, not just in the good times, but when it's hard too." The three girls exchanged glances, a silent conversation passing between them, their expressions a mix of skepticism and curiosity. Finally, Isla spoke up, her voice soft yet resolute. "Okay, but there's something you need to understand. We're not going to make this easy for you. If you want to be our dad, you have to prove it." Gabriel nodded, his heart swelling with a mixture of hope and determination. "I wouldn't expect anything less. Just tell me what you need from me, and I'll do it. First, you have to come to all our ballet recitals," Isla said, a hint of a smile breaking through her seriousness. "They're important to us." "And you can't just show up with gifts," Ivy added, her tone softening slightly. "You have to be there, really there, watching us." "I can do that," Gabriel promised, a smile tugging at his lips. "I'd be honored to be there." "Second," Iris began, crossing her arms again, "we want you to be honest, no more secrets. If we're going to be a family, we need to trust each other." "Absolutely." Gabriel agreed, his heart racing at the thought of sharing his fears and flaws with them. "No secrets." "Third," Ivy said, her voice firm, "if we ask you to leave, you have to. No fighting it. We need to know we have the power to say no if you mess up." Gabriel swallowed hard, the weight of her words settling over him like a heavy shroud. "I understand. If that's what you need, I will respect it, but I'll work every day to earn your trust and your love." "Good," Isla said, a hopeful glimmer in her eyes. "Then we can give you a chance." They stood in silence for a moment, the solemnity of the grave surrounding them, but within that heavy atmosphere, a flicker of light began to emerge. Gabriel felt his heart swell with a mix of trepidation and hope. Perhaps this was the beginning of something beautiful, something worth fighting for. "Can we lay these flowers now?" Isla asked, breaking the silence, looking up at him with eagerness. "Yes, of course," Gabriel replied, his voice gentle. "Let's honor your mother together." The girls knelt down beside the grave, each placing their bouquet of wildflowers with care, the vibrant colors contrasting against the cold grey stone. Gabriel watched them, his heart aching with love and regret, understanding that he had a long road ahead. But in that moment, as they shared their grief and their memories of Rachel, he felt a glimmer of hope for the future. "Mom loved these flowers. Ivy said, her voice softening as she traced her fingers over the petals. She always said they reminded her of summer. Remember the picnic we had at the lake? Isla added, her eyes shining with a mix of sadness and joy. She brought a whole basket of them. Yeah, and she made us sandwiches with the crusts cut off, Iris said, with a small smile, the memory warming her heart. She said it was a special treat. Gabriel listened, his heart swelling, as he realized how deeply they carried their mother's memory. She sounds like an incredible woman, he said softly, his voice breaking. I wish I could have known her like you did. Maybe you can get to know her through us, Isla suggested, her eyes glimmering with hope. We can tell you all, the stories. I would love that, Gabriel replied, his heart aching with gratitude and loss. I want to know everything about her, and about you. As they stood together, the wind whispered through the trees, and in that moment, Gabriel felt a sense of belonging he hadn't known he craved. He had lost Rachel, but perhaps he was beginning to find a new family in the three girls before him. They were not just a reminder of his past mistakes, they were a chance at redemption, and he was ready to embrace it with all his heart.